Lads, lasses and the rest of the masses, welcome back to the channel. I'm Mono from Mono CFC and this is a match review for Chelsea versus Wrexham. This is the first episode of my match review series on the channel where I'll be reviewing every match of this season, so without further ado, this is the good, the bad and the ugly. Welcome to GBU. Today we'll be looking at our previous game, a 5-0 thrashing of League 2 side Wrexham in our first game of pre-season, and what a great game it was. We got to see a lot of our new players, a lot of youth, and a lot of goals, the latter of which has been few and far between these last 12 months, so it's good to be able to cheer for something for once. As this is the reboot of this series, I'll quickly go through how this works. I'll be taking 6, or sometimes more depending on circumstance, things from the game and giving them a grading of good, bad or ugly in these 3 designated boxes. I like to be positive and optimistic where I can, so all 3 boxes may not always be used if we have a particularly great game, or I can't find anything to nitpick about. When I was doing this series years ago, I found myself often really stretching to find anything bad to say, because back then we were actually winning games, but for the most part, I'm going to try and be objective and include bad/ugly ratings where I can. So, we'll start from left to right, and then go back to left so we can end on a positive note. The first thing I want to put in the good box is Ian Maatsen. Ian was nearly my player of the match for this game, just pipped by another player I'll touch on later, scoring a brace in the first half and not putting a foot wrong, despite playing out of position as a left winger. The first goal came from a wonderful pass by Diego Moreira, and an even better run from Nico Jackson, who put it on a plate for Ian with a beautiful assist. The second was even better, with Carney Chukwuemeka laying the ball off for Ian to stroke it into the bottom right corner with his left foot, after a neat passage of fast, intricate passing. Ian has recently seemingly committed himself to Chelsea, and I think he'll be a major player for us going forward into the new season, whether that be at left back or playing higher up like he was in this game. Next up in the good box, I'm going to be putting our young midfielders. Every single one of them, Santos, Carney, Hall, and more specifically the man I'm going to focus on here, Cesare Casadei. The Bruschetta Ballack, as some people have been calling him, was bellissimo in this one, playing the full 90 and never looking out of place. He was my player of the match, and according to you guys, that seems to be the general consensus too. He has such a good commanding presence in that midfield, as his stature at such a young age is phenomenal, adding some strength and height to our midfield that really lacks those attributes. A lot of people before this game like to suggest that all he could do is score, and he proved those doubters wrong in this game, showing a great range of passing and even helping out defensively too. He did get a silly yellow card, but I believe that was just over-eagerness on his part, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. He capped off his impressive display with a beautifully weighted through pass on his weaker left foot to assist Christopher Nkunku to his first goal in a Chelsea shirt. As I mentioned earlier, it was a toss-up for me for player of the match between Maatsen and Casadei, because both of them were excellent in their senior Chelsea debuts. Let's touch on some less than ideal things now, moving on to the bad. But before we do, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to the channel. We are so close to 15k, and only 5% of my viewers are subscribed, so if you want to join that exclusive group and help us achieve that goal, hit that subscribe button and join the masses. There'll only be one thing in this bad box, and it's for Trevor Chalobah. Not because of anything he did, I think he played excellently during the game, but for the odd situation that happened concerning him in the second half. Being subbed off after half time, Cucurella mysteriously got subbed back on again for Trevor with only 5 minutes left of the game to play. This was slightly concerning. We don't know if he had a knock or felt something, or if it was just due to fatigue. The whole thing is a bit weird because in pre-season a majority, if not all of the substitutions are pre-planned before the game, but this one in particular felt like it was impromptu and not planned, suggesting that Trevor might have initially been meant to play the whole 90 and wasn't able to. Maybe he's just a little bit behind schedule in terms of his fitness, which isn't a major concern, but I had to put something in this box and that's all I could nitpick if I'm being honest. Let's move on to the ugly box before we get back to the positives. The only thing that was genuinely not good to see in this game was the tactical switch up into the 3-4-3. Despite scoring more in the second half, I think we played a lot worse than we did in the first. Our passing was slower, we struggled to penetrate the block, and we weren't utilising the wide areas well enough, opting to play through the crowded middle instead. I think the scoreline genuinely flattered us a little bit in terms of that second half performance, and only really got the extra goals late on because Wrexham was shattered and much less fit than our players. I personally don't like this formation without a true number 9, and despite his goal I think Nkunku had a bit of a hard time getting into the game in this formation. He seemed to enjoy playing there considering his post-match interview, but it was evident watching the game that the goal was basically the only time he had an opportunity to show us what he can do. On the other end of things, I think we got a little more sloppy defensively too, gifting Wrexham a handful of chances in the second half. This could have just been down to personnel, but I genuinely don't think we should play this formation unless we have a solid midfield pivot and Reece James in the side. Moving back into the good box, the next thing I want to talk about coincidentally is our defence. I think all of our defenders had genuinely good games, except maybe Chilwell if we're being really harsh, and I was impressed by the younger guys too like Alfie Gilchrist, but I'm going to specifically point out 3 players. Malo Gusto, who was excellent and aggressive and genuinely looks like he could rival James for the starting spot this season. Bashir Humphreys, who looked super comfortable and was barely mentioned, which is a good sign as a defender, it means you aren't making any mistakes. And finally, the very improved Marc Cucurella. Cucu was back to the form that we saw when we first signed him, being aggressive in the press, winning the ball back and genuinely looking comfortable in his position, which he hasn't for some time. I was pleasantly surprised watching him play, and as I mentioned earlier, he even did double duty when he came back onto the pitch for Chalobah late on, and even stopped a 1v1 right at the end of the game. I still think he needs to get that offensive side back into his game, but it's clear he's back in a good headspace and I wish him well in the games to come. Finally, the last player I want to mention in this box is the young Brazilian Angelo Gabriel. I genuinely did not expect to see this guy even play in this game, let alone stun me as much as he did. He was so refreshing to see, silky on the ball with his dribbling, good interplay and passing, could have had an assist for Sterling with a delicious cross to the far post which Sterling somehow missed, and capping it off with an assist for our best goal of the night. Quick one-touch passes between him and Nkunku before neatly slotting in a ball behind the defence for Chilwell to tap home. He was everything that he was hyped up to be. I don't want to get overexcited as it is just the first game against our weakest opponents, but he genuinely might be able to challenge Noni and especially Diego Moreira for that right wing spot. Not only did he play well, but he presented himself well also, with a very well spoken and mature interview alongside fellow Brazilian Andre Santos after the game. I look forward to seeing more of him, and hopefully he gets the chance to play against slightly tougher opponents next time so we can truly assess where he's at. Finally, the question of the day. I'm going to be doing something new here where I highlight a few of the answers to the question of the day from the previous video, so for this one I'll be highlighting these responses, and a special shout out to this commenter who got the scoreline dead on. Now, for this video's question of the day, what did you think of our performance in this game and what changes would you make for the next one? But that was just the first episode of GBU. Thank you ever so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this match in the comment section down below, and if you'd be so kind, subscribe to the channel and leave the video a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss a video from me, or check out some of the other videos on the channel on screen right now. I've been Mono from Mono CFC, and remember, in the rain or in the dry, keep that blue flag flying high. Come on you Blues!